Hey everybody! So I wanted to do something a little bit different today. Instead of telling a story, I wanted to tell my favorite jokes that I have. So I have 3 of them for you today, and I have a lot more than that, so I might continue doing this every so often where I'll just tell you some of the best jokes that I've ever heard. Now, I also know that generally when you click on a video that says best joke ever, they're like pieces of shit. Like they're some of the worst and most cringy jokes. I promise you that is not what's going to happen today, okay? These are genuinely good jokes. So here we go. So this guy gets off work one day and he's finally over with the job. He had to stay pretty late to finish up all of his obligations before he could finally go home. So he gets in his car and he starts to drive home and he realizes, I've got about 30 minutes before I get home. And I don't really want to get home and then make myself dinner and do my chores and then go to bed. It's already pretty late. Let's see maybe if there's a restaurant open and I can just go inside and eat real quick and then just go home and crash. So as he's driving down the road, he sees this restaurant, there's this little diner open. And so he parks and he walks up to the front and he notices this sign that says, the special today is chili. And he goes, you know what? That actually sounds pretty good. So he walks inside and he sits himself down and the waiter walks up to him and she's like, what can I get you today? He goes, well, I was thinking I'd have a bowl of your guys' special chili today. She says, well, I would. I'm so sorry, but you see that table over there? The guy looks over and he's like, yeah? He goes, well, that guy, he ordered the last bowl of chili. So unfortunately, we don't have any more. He's like, oh, okay, well then can you give me a little time? I'll just look at the menu. She goes, yeah, that's totally fine. Walks away. So he's sitting there looking at the menu for a little bit and he looks up and he notices the guy across the way. And the guy across the way is just sitting at the table looking down at the chili. He's not even touching it. The bowl's still full. And so the guy's looking at him for a little bit, and he stands up and he walks over to the guy and he's like, hey, sorry to bother you, but it doesn't look like you're touching your chili. And he's like, no. He's like, well, are you gonna eat it? He's like, nope. He's like, do you mind if I eat it? He's like, have it. It's yours. So he grabs the bowl and he sits himself over kind of across from the guy and he starts eating the soup. And as he's eating it, he's thinking about all the things that he has to do when he gets home. He's going to go work on some laundry, try to file up some stuff, and then try to get into bed as soon as he possibly can. As he's eating this chili, he notices something out of the corner of his eye down in the bowl. And he looks down and he sees a dead rat is laying in the bottom of the bowl. The dude throws up the soup and starts coughing. And the guy across the table goes, yep, that's about as far as I got with it. So these 3 guys get together and they decide that they want to take a sailboat out into the ocean. So they rent themselves a boat and they get in and they sail off. They're doing some fishing when all of a sudden a giant storm captures them and throws them into the middle of the sea. They're sitting there out to sea for 2 days when they finally crash land on this island. And they're sitting there walking around for a couple hours when a tribe of cannibals surrounds them. They're brought to the chief. And the chief looks down at them and says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to skin you, we're going to eat you, and we're going to use your skin to waterproof our canoes. However, before you die, I'm going to grant you a wish. It cannot be to escape, and it cannot be to do harm to any member of this tribe. Make your wish. The first guy says, I want a knife. They give him a knife and he grabs the knife and he says, God bless America, and he slits his throat and he dies. They go to the second guy and he says, I want the same. I want a knife. They give him a knife. He says the same thing. God bless America, and he slits his throat and he falls over and dies. The third guy goes, so hang on a minute. What are you going to do with us again? The chief says, we're going to skin you. We're going to eat you. And we're going to use your skin to waterproof our canoes. He says, I want a fork. They're like, okay. So they give him a fork and he goes, how about this for your freaking canoes? So this last one's one of my favorites. So this guy moves into a new apartment complex and he's unpacking and situating himself before he goes outside and starts walking around the complex and knocking on doors and introducing himself. Well, he walks up to this door and he knocks on it and this old man opens the door. He introduces himself. He says, hey, I'm new to the area. I just wanted to introduce myself, let everybody know, I'm your neighbor. I'm down the way. And they get to talking for a little bit. Well, the guy says, so, by the way, old fella, what do you do? The guy says, well, I'm a professor at the university over here. He says, oh, you're a professor. So what do you teach? He says, I teach philosophical logic. He's like, Philosophical logic, okay, what is that? He says, well, let me run you through a thought experiment real quick. Maybe you'll get it. He's like, okay. Have you ever owned a doghouse? The guy replies, yes, I have owned a doghouse. He says, okay, so then by that information, I know that you have likely owned a dog. He goes, yeah, obviously. He goes, okay, so but given your age, I can assume that due to this companionship, it means that you likely have a wife and kids. You're a family man. The guy goes, okay, good guess. Yes, I do have a wife and kids. He says, okay, so then by that question, do you have a doghouse? I have come to discern that you are a heterosexual male. He goes, damn, okay. He's like, yeah, you see how that works? He's like, yeah, okay, I see how that works. So the guy takes off, he goes back to his apartment, and about a week later, he gets a knock on his door. He opens up the door, and there's this new guy in the complex. And he says, hey, I'm new here, and I was just introducing myself, saying hi to the neighbors. They get to talking for a little bit, and the guy at the door says, hey, have you met the professor? And the guy's like, a professor? What? No, what's he teach? He says, well, he teaches philosophical logic. He's like, philosophical logic? What is that? And he's like, well, he ran me through this thing. Let me see if I can do it to you, Have you ever owned a doghouse? The guy goes, no. He's like, oh, well, you must be a faggot. Bye, guys.